Thank you for tuning in today to Breaking Barriers with Shulanda Hastings. I am your host, Shulanda, author, coach, biblical counseling specialist, here to help you break barriers that cause us to have an unhealthy mind and unhealthy relationships that ultimately steer us away from our divine purpose. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you were able to listen to our last broadcast on last week that was dealing with mending mother-daughter relationships. If you would like to give me your feedback on that topic, as well as in the future, if you would also like to submit questions, I typically post my topic at least the day before. So if you would like to submit questions that you would like me to answer during the broadcast, and of course it will be uh, confidential and everything, but anytime that you would like to email me, just make sure you do it to healthymindscoach@gmail.com. And you can find all of that information on our website at www.promotinghealthyminds.com. So I want you all to do something and just kind of take a deep breath. Make sure or be alert of who you have around you right now, because I'm going to ask you a question that you may want to be alone to answer this question, or you could just answer it to yourself, okay? But how many of you have a dysfunctional family member? That's what I asked. How many of you have a dysfunctional family member? And of course, none of you would admit to being that dysfunctional family member. And that's okay. But we know how in our families, we always have that one person or two that we will single out or know or say something, oh, something just wrong. If that person right there could just handle their issues, we would have a normal family. Well, truth be told, we all have dysfunctional family patterns. It's somewhere along in our history, but it's kind of up to us to be able to deal with those patterns and to be able to recognize them. And that brings me to today's topic: is breaking unhealthy family patterns. Because when we have unhealthy family patterns, what causes that is there's a dysfunction somewhere in our family DNA that we have to be able to deal with. There's a repeated cycle of something. And there are kind of two categories that I want to go over. One is self truth, and the other one is generational curses. These are things that cause unhealthy patterns. But for today's purposes, I want to focus in on self truth, And that kind of falls under that broad spectrum of what we call sometimes the blame game. Sometimes we end up want to blame someone else because it's always easier if we just be honest. We're never at fault. Of course, somebody else is the reason why we're acting out or caused us to handle situations a particular way. It's just easier by human nature to play that blame game. That's something that we have saw all throughout history, all the way back in the Bible in Genesis. But let's look at subjective truth. And that's pretty much when each person has their own perception of truth, and neither one is entirely accurate. It's their reality as they experience it. And that's something that we all deal with. We're all subjected to our own truth of how we perceive truth to be. And it just, as in the definition described, it consists of what we have experienced in life. Sometimes if we've had a hard time, if we've experienced bad situations, or we've had bad things to happen to us, it does affect how we perceive things. And it may not necessarily be the reality of really how it is, but at this time, it's what our reality is because of what we have experienced, what we've had done to us. So that can block our view of being open-minded and being able to see another person's side of the story, because we tend to just focus on how we've had our experience with a particular person, how we've had our experiences with our mom or our father, our siblings. And so We base things on those experiences um, and pretty much come up with our own way of having perceived truth. Another part is emotions versus facts. Our emotions, are shared and understood. Facts pretty much are sometimes they're almost irrelevant, to us. But we have to be able to understand the difference, of course, between emotions and what's factual. A lot of times when we are caught up in family situations, we have an occurrence, an argument may happen. We get so emotionally attached, involved in the situation that we don't take time to actually look at the facts of what happened. It's easy to say, well, my father, he did this, and I can't. I'm so distraught now because he seemed like he mistreated me. He chose sides with my sibling, and when the truth of the matter is, there's a particular reason why Dad had to perhaps show what we perceive as favoritism to our other sibling, but we don't want to necessarily hear what the facts are because right then and there, we're upset because dad has made a choice. But we end up having those family dynamics to occur quite often because no one really takes the time and actually say, okay, well, let me actually listen to the other person's side. I know I'm emotional right now. My feelings might be hurt. I don't understand why mom, dad, or my sister, brother, aunt, uncle reacted like this towards me. Why this happened? So why don't I just take the time to step away and come back and actually engage in conversation and say, well, what really happened? Help me to understand why you did what you did, so that I will be able to see what is going on. A lot of times, when we are dealing with our family relationships, it end up being a repeated cycle of things. And I don't want to go into the generational curse at this time, but a lot of times when we ourselves, we have to admit sometimes we are at fault with things. But that's not the easiest confession to make, especially when we feel that we have been wronged or we've been hurt in a certain way. So we don't necessarily want to say, okay, well, maybe I didn't handle that the correct way. Perhaps I could have watched my tone or um, there's something within me internally that I'm really dealing with, and I'm taking it out on my other family members. And so instead of me just opening up and letting them know what's going on, I'll rather internalize it, and it ends up externalizing in the wrong way. And then you have other issues. You end up making the some other members, upset, and then they may have things going on, but it doesn't. Nobody ever gets to the source, the root of really the problem. Solution. So how do we end up resolving, these matters when we're having the blame game? Because we don't know who is right, what is true, or who is really to blame. We have to understand why a person does the things that they do, and that understanding is real key. Because without that understanding, it cripples us from being able to move forward in a healthy way. We end up always coming back to that incident, that occurrence that really triggered us to be at odds with our family members. And then one incident builds up to another incident before we can't even remember really what was the originating incident. But until we end up actually communicating and just trying to be willing to come to a solution, we won't have one. We'll end up always saying, well, it's because you did this last Thanksgiving, or you remember when you hurt my feelings, or you stole this from me, or you went out with my boyfriend in high school, or something like that. We know about the sibling rivalries we have. But we end up continuously having that blame game, and we use that as a crutch as a reason of why we have an excuse not to make things right, even within our own selves. So this is what I also want to do is read Proverbs 16:2. It says, "All a man's ways seem innocent to him, but motives are weighed by the Lord." So even when we are thinking that we have a right to be upset with someone, especially within our families, we can try to justify things all day long, but until we realize that our motives are not as innocent. God knows. He knows what's weighing on our heart, the truth behind it. And when we get through trying to pass that blame on down, eventually God is going to look at us and hold us accountable for the role that we have played in the entire process. So my challenge for us today is to uh, actually look at right now your family dynamics. This is nothing that's going to be resolved in a day, in 10 or 15 minutes, but actually start to look at the type of family you have, where there might be a unhealthiness or a dysfunction. It may not be with your immediate family, it may be with your extended family, with an aunt or cousin or someone. But instead of the next time the phone rings, or the next holiday that's coming up, or you see them, instead of still going back, remembering the last incident or the reason why you're just so upset with this person, actually start to look within yourself and see really what's going on, and see if you've played any role in how you can try to move forward now, instead of using the blame game. But first, look within yourself and actually try to say, to whatever family member that is, apologize. That would be a great step to be able to, apologize for the wrong that they may have think that you have caused, and even examine for yourself the role that you have played, and be willing to move forward, so that we can start to break this cycle of unhealthy, dysfunctional families. So that's my challenge for you. And next week we will be finishing this topic and go on more on generational patterns, how it affects really a generational curses end up developing from this. And we're going to look at the whole Abraham and Sarah, and we're going to look at really how dysfunctional families actually kind of started. So that's my challenge for us today. Be sure to email me at any time, connect with our Facebook page, Breaking Barriers to a Healthy Mind, and also on the website, promotinghealthyminds.com. Until next time, this is your Healthy Minds coach, Shulanda Hastings.